the discussion that was portrayed in there about, you know, us not wanting to help her because then we wouldn't be able to get into fraternity parties, I think it's ridiculous. Do I think she was raped? Maybe. It's a very non-committal answer, I know, but maybe. I don't want to dismiss the possibility.
What was supposed to be an expose of brutal sexual abuse on college campus has turned into a cautionary tale of failing to check sources and then running with the hysteria of the moment. Add to that putting Edward Snowden smack dab in a corner and the standard idiocy of the rabid sports fan. You have the setup for this version of the arena. On the board, he is the former Atlanta police officer, current attorney, and author of Observations of White Noise, an acid test for the First Amendment. Let's welcome back Marc Harold. And she is the CEO and editor-in-chief at Politichicks.com, also co-author of the top-ranked best-selling book on Amazon in the category of Women in Politics, What Women Really Want. And she's not shy about revealing it either. Let's welcome back Anne-Marie Murrell. I thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Anne-Marie, I'm going to start with you right now with this whole Rolling Stone issue regarding the alleged rape that never happened here. There are people right now looking at this and just hammering away at Rolling Stone. They deserve everything they're getting at this point. But to you, I specifically ask, is it not fair to say that this may have set back the actual investigation of what is a very, very real situation on college campus, the sexual abuse of women, because now people are going to look and they're going to say, gee, I really don't know whether or not to believe what actually happened is what she said.
Yeah. Yes. But I also want to defend the men involved in this because men on college campuses are also under assault right now. Because of the 1 in 5 statistic that 1 in 5 women have been sexually assaulted. I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but that includes a man trying to kiss a woman. You can file charges on campus for that as well. Rape allegations can ruin a man's life. And if I'm especially concerned right now with the University of Virginia with the men who have been involved in this disgusting
Well, we're also talking about
thing.
the men, though, who are innocent. I think that's what there is a problem here. There's no doubt about it. But I think what you're pointing to is very solid in that there are those who simply are completely innocent, not involved at all, yet there will be a perception that continues to go against them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, I'm a woman, so of course I'm speaking out for women as well. But again, men are the ones in this particular story especially who are the actual probable victims.
Marc, how much more difficult is it going to make it for law enforcement now to go in? Because it's awfully tough to have somebody actually come forward in the first place, but now you have somebody who completely got it wrong. There's a lot of lying apparently that went on here. And not only that, but the men who are accused. This has got to make it very difficult for police to do their job.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make it harder to do your job. Listen, most of these situations are where there's a, it's a he said, classic he said, she said, and in a lot of these cases, it comes down to credibility. It comes down to witnesses coming forward. Look, we all know that in the internet age, news comes out fast, and that includes crime reporting. And we are always going to have that situation where somebody rushes to get the news out, and later we all know that the accusations on the front page, and when it gets recanted later, it's on page 14. But that really doesn't have anything to do here. Rolling Stone is completely has a real problem here. This was not a situation where somebody posted something before they should have, or somebody let a name go in the rush to get in the headline race. This was an expose. There was absolutely no time reason for these checks and balances that exist in their editorial process to not be followed. So I absolutely, going back to your question, yes, anything like this, a large-scale problem with a breakdown either in police investigation or the media investigating an event like this is going to have repercussions in the future for people coming forward, police officers getting cooperation. But look, an expose like this where time should have been taken, there's really no excuse for a breakdown this bad. You've got a story this wrong that could destroy lives.
30 seconds left, and we have to take a break. But in your opinion, as a lawyer and as a former member of law enforcement, what is it that men and women need to do to protect themselves on campus in these situations?
Well, they need to be vigilant, and they certainly don't need to bring forth any false information. It makes it harder for everybody in the future. These aren't easy situations, but look, you absolutely, law enforcement going out to get these credible statements, anything that undermines that can put people's lives in danger and their safety at risk.
And I think it's a good point to make, too, that there are people whose lives are changed forever. By the way, I just want to announce here that the fraternity itself, who's at the center of the Rolling Stone article, will pursue legal action against the magazine. And I can bet that's going to be a monstrous settlement. And as someone said earlier today here in our office, I'll bet you it will be a settlement indeed. Marc Harold and Anne-Marie Murrell, please stand by just a couple of moments because we have to come back a little bit more here on The Arena now as we dig into Rand Paul, but specifically Dzhokhar Tsarnaev and the trial that is going on at this moment. We'll deal with that and more on The Arena next. Back to The Arena, former Atlanta police officer, author of Observations of White Noise, an acid test for the First Amendment. Marc Harold, CEO and editor-in-chief at Politichicks.com, also co-author of What Women Really Want. Anne-Marie Murrell joins us. I'm going to come to you this time, Marc, first, because here we have the Dzhokhar Tsarnaev trial that is going on. The final arguments are being heard today, and the prosecutor noted today to the jury that Tsarnaev, quote-unquote, wanted to punish America in the Boston bombing. There's no doubt the prosecution wants to see him put to death when we get to that phase. Do you think he deserves it?
Well, I don't personally believe in the death penalty, so I think he deserves it, but I don't believe that that should be the state-sanctioned penalty here. This is an interesting trial because the clerk, the lead defense attorney there, right out of the back, basically said, you know, my client did it. There he is. He did it. I think what this will really come down to, if they do get the death penalty, and I think it's highly likely that they very well might, but when you look at this many counts and you look at what the judge had to do for jury instructions, especially when it comes down to some sort of conspiracy or aiding and abetting between the two brothers, I think this is going to be very ripe for appeal. And what you may see is not only appeal of the sentence itself, but appealing convictions on, let's say, out of the 30, they get 27. They could spend years and years appealing those subcharges out of the full slate there. So it's a very interesting case where the defense attorney leads out and says, my client did it. Jury instructions were, you know, pretty involved because you have this back and forth between who's legally culpable for what actions, and especially actions they didn't directly take but agreed with between the brothers to take. So, yeah, I don't believe in the death penalty personally. I don't think that the state should have state-sanctioned that as a penalty or a sentence. But as far as they deserve it in a general sense, of course they do. Of course he does.
Anne-Marie, it's difficult to look at the pictures of the people there with severed limbs and all the blood on the streets, and I know those streets personally, but to see those and not want to put somebody to death for the pain they caused.
Well, the interesting thing is that both brothers were ready to die in the name of Allah. So they were both prepared to go. I'm seventh generation Texan, so I'm a little more for the death penalty in this kind of an instance. When, again, these two brothers were ready to die for Allah, and they were willing to take down as many people as they possibly could, which they did.
Is that difficult for you to say, though, as a Christian?
Of course it is, but it's even more difficult when I see the slaughtering that's happening even as we speak in the name of Allah across the world right now. And in America, I think that we need to say unequivocally that this cannot and will not be tolerated in our country.
All right, I'm going to change up here with about 90 seconds to go in this break. Let's turn to somebody who may have to deal with foreign policy. And Anne-Marie, to you first. Rand Paul is going to announce tomorrow that he will seek the presidential nomination, the Republican nomination. Is he really electable?
I want to learn more about his national defense plans. I want to understand what he plans to do with military spending. I know that he's not real crazy about that, but our Navy has been shredded. Our military needs more money, not less, and I want to know what he thinks of the threat of Islam on America and the world.
You know, part of it all here is he's a libertarian, he's a Republican. Don't you think that confuses some people?
There are a lot of kind of crazy kooks on the libertarian side. There are 9/11 conspiracy theorists. I think that he really, really needs to separate himself from a lot of the kind of shady, questionable people that a lot of people associate with his father as well.
So, Marc, I'll throw it to you then. In your opinion, is Rand Paul the kind of a person that America needs right now?
I like several parts of his platform, and I'm wary of other parts. Whether he's electable, I don't know that he can get through. I think the Republicans are always going to have a problem getting somebody through their primary that can be elected in the general elections. But you know, I think in some ways separating himself from his father's supporters actually is not the direction I think he should go. I think he needs that base support, and his views on how interventionist, I don't believe isolationist, but interventionist he needs to be to keep a lot of the Ron Paul supporters. That is kind of, you know, his bread and butter support going into the primary to get him through that, and then hopefully pick up more general Republican support on the other side if he can get the nomination. But yeah, I think this issue is tough for him because he's got a lot of support, a lot of individuals who would identify themselves as libertarian. If he's perceived to be interventionist or increasing military spending, will drop off and he'll lose that support. And I think this is the wedge issue between him and his father.
There you go. Got to stop it there. We'll take a break, come back. We have more to cover right here on The Arena. Welcome back to The Arena. Once again, former Atlanta police officer, author of Observations of White Noise, an acid test for the First Amendment, and attorney Marc Harold, CEO and editor-in-chief at Politichicks.com, who's been spreading the word of her appearance on this show on Twitter all day. God love her. She's also the co-author of What Women Really Want, and Murrell. All right, we got a few things to get to here. Let's see if we can rip through them here. I tell you what, Marc, I'm going to start with you on this one. After the University of Kentucky lost in the Final Four, of course, they then had the usual student gathering outside, which included people burning couches, burning mattresses, doing whatever they could. At last word, I think they had about 31 people arrested. Is this not just the generation of stupid that this happens every single time?
It absolutely is. It takes away all for the celebration or shock value and the fact that everyone can predict it's going to happen. It's just useless, you know, for taking the couch off somebody's, home, burning it in the street. It serves no purpose. But yeah, the fact that it's so predictable and it happens every time is really diluted any sense that it really marks a big occasion. Everybody knows it's going to happen. You arrest 30 to 50 people. Dealt with it in Atlanta some when there be big events, and you go on from there. But it's certainly mindless.
Anne-Marie, don't they realize how much couches and mattresses cost, for crying out loud? These aren't cheap items.
Of course they don't. They're still college kids. But you're right. You know, my husband had some friends over for the game, and they're big Kentucky fans. They left pizza boxes in my living room that I had to pick up. So that was as much of a protest as I could handle.
Oh, that in itself is absolutely despicable. Do they not know the difference? And tell them pick up their pizzas.
No.
Here we go to a guy who really hasn't had pizza in a while because he's living in Moscow. John Oliver of HBO had an interesting interview with Edward Snowden in Moscow. Here's a quick clip. This starts with Oliver asking Snowden how many documents Snowden actually read that he leaked. Here's his response.
How many of those documents have you actually read?
I've evaluated all of the documents that are in the archive.
You've read every single one?
Well, I do understand what I turned over.
But there's a difference between understanding what's in the documents and reading what's in the documents.
Anne-Marie, welcome to a guy who put people's lives in danger and had absolutely no idea what he was turning over.
Yeah. Oh, well, of course. This was one of the best interviews I've seen all year, though, frankly. One of the questions that he asked was, do you miss Hot Pockets? So it's so bizarre that there was this really kind of deep discussion with a man who is considered questionable all over the world.
Oh, don't even say questionable. Go ahead. You can say it out loud. Some people consider him a traitor.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, Marc, for you, having worked in law enforcement, you know how tough it is sometimes to keep clandestine informants and how tough it is sometimes when you have to infiltrate even the smallest gangs in some of these cities. For this guy to do it, this still makes it, again, so tough for law enforcement to do their job and puts people's lives at risk.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that we're in a new era as far as keeping information, for information gathering, than it used to be. And this was an interesting interview. It certainly, the way that the interviewer, how nervous he seemed to be, and the whole outlay about leading up to the interview when Snowden was late and all was a fascinating thing. As far as it was a good interview, I think it was a good interview. I think it was fascinating. It was kept under wraps more than most things that it was going to occur. But yeah, absolutely. This is a pivotal moment when you start talking to somebody, and the distinction between did you read everything, understand it, and then disclose it, or did you leak everything and read it later? Obviously, that's a different level of risk as far as that information coming out. So I found it pretty interesting.
Many people hope he never gets Hot Pockets again for as long as he lives. That would be something else.
I think there's a lot more to the story, but we'll see.
I will agree that. 30 seconds left is all we got. Marc, who do you like in the game tonight?
You know, I don't know. I think they're on a roll. I think that the momentum from beating Kentucky goes on, and and they take the whole thing. I wouldn't have said that nowhere in my bracket early on, but that's what I think now.
You probably have no bracket left at this point, that like most people.
Hey, if I still had anything going on in my bracket, I would have been here today. I'd be out celebrating and making a lot of money either way.
Who's okay, Anne-Marie, to you then, 10 seconds.
I'm a football girl. I like the Dallas Cowboys.
So you could care less who wins tonight?
Kind of.
Okay,
yeah.
good. All right. Well, trust me, there's a lot of people out there who will root against Duke just because they're Duke. Just so you know. Okay, that's the way it goes. Pleasure to have you guys. Marc, Harold, Anne-Marie, Murrell, thank you so much for being here. We'll do it again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, take care. The arena closes for another day. We head to Hour 3 on MidPoint, digging into the place in America that is often called the Academy for Jihad. That's next, where we question everything.